This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
All right, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Leah Mahalik. I am the Director of Historic Preservation for the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And May is Preservation Month. And during Preservation Month, the Metropolitan Planning Commission, as of last year, started doing a few events. And this is our first of our 2 webinars this month. Our next one is on Friday, May 28th at 12 p.m. It's Savannah's local historic districts, the what, where, and why. And Olivia Arfuso, assistant planner here in our department, is going to be the presenter on that one. Monica Gann, she just started with us a couple of weeks ago, so I just wanted to mention her. And then Aslan Drosky, she is the staff person who has been doing our daily Instagram posts throughout the month of May for Preservation Month. So if you haven't seen any of those yet, those are fantastic. She's doing a great job, and please check them out. And of course, Melanie Wilson, our executive director. So today, what are we going to talk about? Markers, monuments, and public art. What is the Historic Site Monument Commission? We really this year wanted to bring awareness to the Historic Site Monument Commission. So we're going to start with when, who, and why was the Savannah and Chatham County Historic Site Monument Commission established? And you'll also see throughout the presentation that we're going to point out or show a lot of more current markers, monuments, and public art that have been installed instead of sort of the typical statues of Oglethorpe and Jasper that you all are used to seeing. So here you'll see Yamakra Art Park, the Weeping Time Georgia Historical Society marker, and the recent Starland Dairy murals. Oh, I did also want to show to quickly our flyer for Preservation Month that Aslan created. So this is basically the same information that I just gave you verbally, but the link for today's webinar, but here's the link for next 2 weeks, May 28th, 2 weeks webinar. So when was the Historic Site Monument Commission established? It was established on February 25th, 1949 via state legislation. And you can see here on the right, the original Senate bill that created the Historic Site Monument Commission. The Site Monument Commission consists of 5 members that are appointed by mayor and aldermen. And it also includes, so we have a total of 6 members, the chairman of the Park and Tree Commission, whoever that might be at the time, and that is a ex officio member. So why was the Site Monument Commission created, or why did the Senate bill, why was it enacted? Why was it adopted? And this is paraphrasing. You can read the whole legislation if you'd like, but to appropriately mark and care for, to restore and or repair, and to erect appropriate monuments and markers in Chatham County and the city of Savannah that commemorate events and people of historic interest. That the public be admitted to historic sites now closed to the public, and that appropriate rules and regulations be adopted, enforced governing these matters, that an authority with the necessary and appropriate powers be established to accomplish these ends. So as you can see, especially at the end there, this legislation allowed the Historic Site and Monument Commission to be established. So with the necessary to appoint an authority with the necessary and appropriate powers. And just an interesting fact too is this is actually the oldest commission that we have here. So, and this is sort of a little Easter egg, I guess they call them. I was wondering if everybody knows what these are. And these are the sphinxes that used to be at the head of Forsyth Park, at the head there at Gaston and Forsyth. But about 100 years ago, they were made out of metal. And about 100 years ago, some kids thought it was a good idea to blow them up with fireworks. So unfortunately, we no longer have the sphinxes at Forsyth Park, but this is sort of an older example of our our city's public art or markers, monuments, public art. So what and where is the Savannah and Chatham County Historic Site and Monument Commission's purview? So what is their purview, and where in the city do those different objects have purview, or does the commission have purview over certain objects? And here I just wanted to show you the Haitian monument. Of course, the Lion Fountain and the Colonial Park Cemetery marker are quite old, but some of our favorites. But the Haitian monument is that's less than 20 years old. So what types of objects and where in the city? So a lot of folks might not know, but it depends on the type of object, as to the type of object and to where it is on public and private property, what the actual purview is of the board. So starting with markers, monuments, and works of art. So that doesn't include murals erected on public property. So the Site Monument Commission, or HSMC as we fondly call them, which I'll start referring to them as at the rest of the presentation. So anywhere for these three items on public property within the entire city limits is what HSMC has purview over. And second, markers, monuments, and works of art, excluding murals, and greater than 27 cubic feet on private property and visible from the public right-of-way, and located within a locally designated historic district within the city limits. So that's a lot of requirements to meet to be able to review markers, monuments, and works of art on private property. And for those who are not aware of what our locally designated historic districts are, it's these four here within the city limits. So the one that everybody probably knows of is the Savannah Downtown Historic District. But locally designated, we also have the Victorian Historic District, the Streetcar Historic District, and the Cuyler Brownville Historic District. So we also have several what we call conservation districts, but that would not apply in this case. This is for historic districts only. So there's several criteria to meet there in order to review private property work, excuse me. So with regard to murals visible from the public right-of-way within the entire city limits. So murals, there's a large purview for murals within the city. And lastly, and this is sort of a new item that the commission has purview over, and that's naming and renaming of public property, facilities, and streets within the city limit. So that's a new ordinance, and it came under the HSMC's purview a few years ago. And they make recommendations to City Council, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. So what exactly are markers, monuments, public art, and murals? So they are very distinct, and I'm not going to read all of this, but a marker is basically a plaque with text, usually doesn't include images unless it's sort of a seal or something other than that. It's either erected, it's mounted into the ground, embedded into the ground, mounted on a building, erected on a pole, but its primary purpose is to inform the public about a historical event, place, or person. So that is what a marker is. If it doesn't have those items, we can try to categorize it as something else, but that's what a marker should contain. So a monument is which usually includes statues, fountains, obelisks, plantings. They're installed to commemorate or memorialize an event, place, or person. Public art is any artwork crafted by an artist or craftsman and installed specifically to enhance the public space. Again, one of our newer items here is Johnny Mercer's sculpture in Ellis Square. So that can include sculptures, mosaics, fountains, water elements. Murals sort of falls under public art according to our master plan and guidelines, but we do have a whole newish, I guess it's been 8 years, fast 8 years since we adopted the mural policy in 2013. But public art is usually a commissioned artwork. So murals, which again is a subset of public art, is a singular flat work of art applied with property owner and HSMC approval onto a building, structure, fence, or any other object such as that. They don't most importantly, they don't contain text, graphics, symbols, advertising, businesses, products, services, and they're not political in nature. So that's what separates a mural from a sign or from graffiti. Graffiti it could be technically a mural if you're looking at it, but if it hasn't been approved by the property owner or by HSMC, it's categorized by code compliance as graffiti. But any other thing is considered a political sign or an advertising sign and does not constitute a mural. And I think those are important distinctions to make there. So how does the Savannah and Chatham County Historic Site and Monument Commission review a proposal? It's basically what do they use to determine an object's appropriateness and what an object actually is. So I just want you to recall at the beginning when we showed in 1949 the adoption, they were given the power to create regulations as well. So what they ultimately created is the Markers, Monuments, and Public Art Master Plan and Guidelines for the City of Savannah. And this is the cover of it. Adopted in 2007, it was revised in 2011 and 2013, and we are actually working on a 2021 update in progress right now. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but the HSMC, they use the master plan and guidelines to review proposals for markers, monuments, public art, and murals. And as I mentioned, the city's naming and renaming ordinance was added to the commission's purview in 2018 when it was adopted by mayor and aldermen. So the guidelines have been updated 3 times, and we're working on a 4th update now. So what is in the master plan and guidelines? I'm not going to go over all 80 or so pages of it, I guess 56 pages of it. But I am going to sort of go over the titles. This is the table of contents for the master plan and guidelines. So at the beginning is a history and a purpose. So a much shorter version of this presentation I'm doing today is at the beginning. There's information on existing markers, monuments, and public art, established themes for all those objects, sites available. Sites have been evaluated all over the city and been, determined eligible, basically, for the potential to receive a monument or a work of public art. They weren't evaluated for markers or murals because those are much more often on private property or attached to buildings or those sorts of things. So of course, Chapter 5, design, the design and the text are very important parts of the review process. Chapter 6 is the mural policy on its own. And we do also get into in Chapter 7, funding. How are you going to pay for this? How are you going to maintain it? Processes and procedures, which is going to be a bigger part of the presentation later, so I won't get into it too much, but it does give you right in the master plan and guidelines, your checklists, your processes for how it's reviewed. Who reviews it? Is it a recommendation? Is it an approval? What can staff review at a staff level? Roles and responsibilities in Chapter 9. So it describes the applicant's responsibilities, the property owner, if it's not the same as the applicant, the MPC historic preservation staff. There is also a technical advisory committee that gets involved when there's very large, complex projects. The last project I can recall that we convened the technical advisory committee for was a World Apart monument, the World War II monument on River Street, which we'll talk about a little bit. The boards or the commissions review, and then how does the Historic District Board of Review get involved? We'll talk a little bit about that. Park and Tree Department, which is now called Greenscapes, Leisure Services, which also has a name. These are going to be some of the updates that are coming in 2021. The zoning administrator and such. What's the mayor and alderman's role? And then, of course, a lot of appendices for definitions and maps, very important maps that show the locations of all of the existing objects. So there's 4 main purposes for the master plan and guidelines for its existence. And the biggest, I would say the most important one, is that it provides an inventory of markers, monuments, and public art. including murals, actually the update is going to include murals. But this is an example of a map and a supplement associated with it. Purpose number 2 provides criteria for which to review new markers, monuments, and public art. And this is a couple of pages example of those design criteria that I was discussing a little bit from the table of contents. Purpose number 3, it identifies appropriate locations for new monuments. And this is, again, the evaluated sites throughout the city for where it's appropriate to locate new monuments. And purpose number 4, it provides the processes and procedures information to assist applicants, staff, the commission, and city council to be able to review and evaluate applications. And this is some of the checklists and things that I mentioned. So we're going to get into a little bit of some crazy looking charts here in a minute. And I think that's another important reason that we're doing this is understanding what object goes to goes through which review process. And this is a World Apart monument that I was mentioning. This is on River Street, and it's our most recent monument in the city. Monuments are obviously monumental, and they don't come around too often. But this is also showing a fairly recent public work of art on the Indigo Hotel, as well as the very recent Starl Fence Mural project. So the review process for a marker on public and private property. So the first thing you have to do is determine if the marker is on public property or private property. If it's on private, over here, you do go to the Site Monument Commission. However, approval ends with the Site Monument Commission. You don't have to go to City Council. If it's on public property, that of course is city property. So the Site Monument Commission makes a recommendation to City Council. As opposed, and City Council has the final say on that. And there is, of course, an appeals process. If you're appealing a HSMC decision, that goes to City Council. If you're appealing a City Council decision, that goes to appeals court, appellate court. Review process for monuments or public art on private property. So of course, determine if it's in a local historic district, as we discussed, and if it's visible from the public right of way. If it's not in a local historic district or visible, there is no review process other than, of course, if you're not the owner, obtain the owner's permission before you put anything on their property. But if it is in a local historic district and it is visible from a public right of way, so obtain owner permission, meet with staff, and that's any of the people that I mentioned on the front there, in addition to another newer, he's not too new at the MPC, but Kiakala and Temo, who I believe is on the line as well. He has started helping us review some of the petitions for the Site Monument Commission as well. So you can contact me as the director of the department if you need assistance finding out any of this information, whether you're in a local historic district, whether it's going to be visible from the public right of way. So SPR stands for Site Plan Review. And if it's going to be something where the ground has to be dug up or something that might affect traffic patterns, you want to meet with city departments about that to make sure that it meets all of their standards as well. There are a lot of notification requirements. One of those is to, I'm sorry, I did not unplug my phone. There we go. One of those is to post on the property. We create those signs for you. Your responsibility is to pick them up, post them on the site, and ensure that they remain there until after the meeting. We as staff, we also send out notification to all property owners within 200 feet of the site via snail mail. So I mentioned the Technical Advisory Committee, and they are not involved every time. They're involved if the HSMC chooses to basically invoke their committee. So after notification requirements, you go to the board and they make a decision, final decision. If it's on private property, it's a final decision. You can deny it to City Council. If it's on public property, the city council obviously makes the decision, and you can appeal their decision through the appellate court system. This one looks real complicated, but bear with me. That's what this is for. And we are reformatting these for the 2021 update as well. But for process for monument or public art on public property, so public property, city property. So the first thing you want to do is see if where you want to put this monument is an available site as listed in Chapter 4 that we discussed. If it's not listed as available site, we need to convene the TAC, and site monument needs to decide if the site where you want to put it is appropriate or not. If that site's not available and the board determines you can't put it where you would prefer to put it, you can appeal to city council. But city council determines if the site is available or not. You can also appeal that decision. But let's just say that you choose an available site for your monument. You go to the site plan review process. You meet your notification requirements if necessary. Usually with a monument, it's definitely a good idea to convene the TAC. Site monument makes a recommendation to city council because it's on public property. City council makes a decision which can be appealed. So monuments, because of their size and scale, there's actually a two-part process. So if you receive approval of part 1, you then start the process over by submitting part 2. And then you go through the process again here. Review for a mural. So first thing is to determine if that mural is visible for the public right of way. If it's not visible, just obtain permission from the owner and go ahead. If it is visible, you want to get a determination that it's a mural and not a sign. Staff can usually help you with that, but if there's any kind of conflict in what staff and the applicant thinks, we can get a determination from the zoning administrator. So this is what I was talking about before. You need to determine whether this mural is in the Savannah Historic District or the Downtown Historic District. If it is, you need a certificate of appropriateness from the Historic District Board of Review before you can install a mural and before you can go to Site and Monument Commission. If the Savannah Historic District deems it visually appropriate, and issues you a COA, you can then submit your application to the Historic Site and Monument Commission and go through the same process. So posting, notification requirements. And on private property, Site and Monument has the final decision. On public, it goes to City Council. And again, there's an appeals process. So that is quite a mouthful, but that is what staff is here for, to help you through these processes. Just get to the next page. So, very importantly, where do you find the forms, what is required, and how to apply to the Historic Site and Monument Commission? So, we are going to sort of start from scratch as if you were an applicant. The first thing you would do is go to the MPC's website, which is thempc.org. Right on the home page here, underneath the photograph and quick links, is applications, instructions, and forms. So this is Historic District Board of Review. Nope, you don't want that one. This is Historic Preservation Commission, Chatham County. Here's the one you're looking for, Historic Site Monument Commission. So there is not a fee at this time to apply to Historic Site Monument Commission, so you don't have to worry about the big red button. But you do want to download both the application and the instructions. So you download just by clicking on it, and you'll want to save it to your desktop, but the download button is up here. And you'll save it to your desktop, and you'll start filling the boxes in. It's a fillable PDF that you'll save to your desktop. So the applicant, it could either be you as the property owner, which in that case, you would fill out the same information for applicant and owner. But let's just say that you're having the artist that you've hired, go through your process for you. This would be that artist's information. This would be the property owner's information because they have to consent if it's on their private property. And official correspondence. This is whomever you would like us to ask to come pick up signs, whoever is going to be doing your presentation at the public meeting. If you want both the applicant and the owner, you would check both boxes. And if there's somebody else, let's just say you have an architect involved, you want to put their information here. So is the proposed project on public or private property? You want to put that here. Property identification number, I will show you how to find that. That's an important key. So sagis.org. Oops, excuse me. So when you get to sagis.org, you want to go into the map viewer. It's very helpful at this point to know what your address of your property is or exactly where it's located. Just for example, I'm going to use the address of the MPC, which is 110 East State Street. I don't know why it did that. State. Okay. So this is the building that I'm in right now. So to get your parcel identification number, you would left click on the parcel and it'll show up right here, parcel identification number. And you can simply cut, copy. Just want to make sure I'm opening the right document. You simply copy and paste it in. And then if you know the address of your property, that goes here. So let's just say you're applying for a Georgia Historical Society marker. You would click freestanding marker here. Your project description can be very brief. Georgia Historical Society freestanding marker. Very simple. So this is important too. The deadline for the public meeting is always the month before the meeting. So let's just say that here's meeting date and here's cutoff over here. So August 6th, let's say, your cutoff is July 9th. So you want to make sure that you're in by close of business at 5 p.m. on July 9th to be heard at the August 6th meeting. Now your estimated cost of proposed work, you don't have to know that right down to the penny. We're just looking to sort of track how much dollar reviews we're doing each year. Now you can either print this form out when you get to the end and sign it manually, or if you have a digital signature, you can do that. But that's the end of the application. There's an instruction documents with that as well, and it actually goes over a lot of what we've talked about today. Here's a link to the master plan and guidelines. Here's a definitions of all the objects we've talked about today. Here talks about the application procedures, where you should submit, by when, review times, staff level reviews, and again, the estimated work, whether or not you need a building permit, and then here's all these checklists that we talked about. So all of these items on the checklist should be included with your application for historical marker. Completed application form, colored photographs, your theme, which you would get all that information from the master plan and guidelines. But for ease, we put all the themes right here in the checklist. So this document does not need to be submitted with your application. It's for reference. And what also for reference is we provided a map of the local historic districts at the end of the instructions. So as I mentioned, these documents can be found right on our website. If you don't have ability to get to these, you can always call staff and we can print you out a hard copy that you could pick up or that we can mail to you. Or if you can't find it on our website, we can email it to you, all those things. So also on our website, I will show you how to, I'm going to go home again, just so you see from the beginning. So again, www.thempc.org. And under boards and commissions, Historic Site and Monument Commission. You can also get to the applications, instructions, and forms from there. You can also see archived minutes, our board members, what items are on their next public meeting on this fun map here. But most importantly, you can get the most current agenda, you can get previous minutes, the entire audio. So what's it like to attend a meeting? So this is an agenda. This is the whole agenda. We start with a call to order and welcome. We approve the minutes of the previous meeting, and then we get to the actual review, the meat of the meeting, which is reviewing any proposals. And this was last month's meeting. So we reviewed, the Site and Monument Commission reviewed a mural, and they also reviewed the naming of, it says public park here, but it was the gazebo within the public park. And then sometimes, a lot of the times, we'll have presentations, some updates on some projects that are going on in the city. And we're going through an update for the comprehensive plan for unincorporated Chatham County and the city of Savannah. And so last month we had a presentation on that, last meeting, I should say. And then we always talk about when the next meeting is, and then we adjourn the meeting. So pretty straightforward. All right, back to here. So this is a brand new mural, if anybody hasn't seen this yet. This is on the Eastern Wharf parking garage, visible and enormous and visible from a lot of different areas in the city. Quite lovely. And this is what I mentioned here about what it's like to attend a meeting. So our iconic Forsyth Park, this is a mural on Two Tides Brewing. And this is what a board meeting looks like during a pandemic. There's nobody there, some staff and some board members. So why do the master plan and guidelines look so out of date? Because they are. We are in the process of an update. On the left, you'll see an existing map and a supplemental list. And on the right, you'll see what our new maps and lists are going to look like. They will no longer be in the text of the master plan and guidelines, but they will be a supplement or an attachment or an appendix to the master plan and guidelines that you can access more easily than flipping through the 60 pages of the master plan and guidelines. But we will also we're almost done with this process. So we have reorganized and streamlined the document and hopefully made it easier to read and find what you're looking for. So this is part of the comprehensive plan that's going to be adopted later this year. It's required to be adopted by the end of the year, and this is part of that. And this says draft, of course, because it has not been viewed by anybody yet. So I am going to open it up for questions, and I do believe you all should have the raise your hand feature if you have any questions. And I was just going to remind you about our other Preservation Month events as well. And this is my direct phone number and my email address. Can somebody, Aslan, I see that you're there. Would you mind telling me whether or not there's a raise your hand feature? Are you able? I don't think I can unmute you. I should.
I don't see one.
Okay, it looks like if you click on the 3 dots on your name, you can send a chat. So I'm going to give it a couple minutes and see if anybody has any questions. No questions out there? Okay, well, is there anything anybody would like me to go over again in the presentation? This will also, yes, hello.
Hey, at least have one question. Come on now. What's been your favorite project that you've gotten to work on at the Historic Sites and Monuments Commission?
My favorite project? Let's see. This was really, this was really fun to review and work with the Eastern Wharf people on. I thought it was very creative, and it took a part of our city. This is actually a bird's eye view drawing from over 100 years ago that they took and manipulated into sort of a black and white. And so this is the portion of the river where this building is located. This is what it looked like over 100 years ago. And so it was interesting that they took a big blank canvas and sort of put a little bit of our history on it. So.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right, I see some of my favorite people out there. All right, well, if nobody else has any questions, I'm going to put my, oops, excuse me. I'm going to put my contact information up again. Oh, I know I see it just went to the other view again. Here we go. Okay. So I know it's on the other view, but that's okay. So there is my contact information again. And then I again invite you to check out our daily Instagram posts, as well as our second webinar on February 28th that will be hosted by Olivia Arfuso. And I did see a couple of chats. Let's see. Okay. So what happens if I put up a mural without permission? Is it my artist's responsibility? That is a good question. Yes, I mean, it's your responsibility as the property owner, as well as your artist's responsibility to know the process. And what will probably happen is that someone, whether it be a member of the public, a staff person, or a code compliance department, will see that a mural has been put up without permission, and they will, code compliance will take on a case, and they will let us know that an after the fact mural is applying or must apply to come before the board. So it goes through the same exact process. The board is charged with reviewing it under the same master plan and guidelines. Whether or not it has already been done that's supposed to be code compliance's responsibility. And Melanie says, I think everybody can see the chat, but the process is on our website for what happens in the case of after the fact work. And Chris says, thanks for doing this. I love the images that were chosen. I'm trying to get some more, we've been trying to get some more current images of some of our work, especially our murals. There's been a lot of exciting murals lately and mural projects. So we're trying to get those in. I think our newest project is the Starland Fence Mural Project. I wanted to show some more of those. So, and the Moravian colonist marker, which is right out here in Oglethorpe Square outside of our building in front of the Owens Thomas house, has some new landscaping around it. So it looks a lot better. This is another one of our newest murals. Fairly new mural on the right. Johnny Mercer's not too old. The two on the left are some of our older murals, as well as I mentioned, some of the ones on here. Let's see. And Malik Watkins, thank you. Ditto to what Christopher said. All right. Yeah, I suppose I didn't even think of that. It seems like you all can unmute yourselves too. But if we don't have any other questions, I am happy to show my information one last time. And feel free to call me, and we're recording this session, and just like last year's sessions, we'll keep them up on our website all year on the preservation homepage, and they'll be archived. And we're thinking of putting this one up with some sort of timestamps on it, so that if you, let's see, I can't remember where to find the applications, I can go to the timestamp on here. Where I showed you where on our website to find the applications, for example. So I'm hoping it will be a working document, a working tool for you all in the future as well. And I thank you all for attending. And I hope you have a nice rest of your preservation month. Oh wait, one more chat. There we go. I was about to ask about the process, the process for after the fact. Malik, is that what you're asking about? Oh, to designate a marker. Right, so that is, here's the process to designate a marker, but of course staff can always help you, and it depends on whether it's on public or private property. For private property, the process is here. It's basically an application process, notification requirements, and then a one-stop shop at Site and Monument for approval. And then over here on public property, there's an extra stop. Site and Monument makes a recommendation to City Council, and City Council makes the final decision. All right. Okay. Thank you again. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off, but feel free to contact me if you think of any other questions later on. And thank you all for coming. I truly appreciate it. Happy Preservation Month.